In my work with many web designers, a lot of people want to know how to go full time in their business without actually sacrificing the security that many feel they have in their full time job. And I understand this. In fact, I was there. I quit my job at a time when I think many would say it was crazy to do so. It was during COVID when I quit my job. I was working for a great company. I had steady pay. They were not firing people during COVID. They were one of the companies who were, being real strategic and real, gracious with their employees, trying to make the remote work thing happen. And, just to be honest, I had it made. I had a really great setup. And it was then that I chose to leave and to strike out on my own. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that today, about what it looks like to actually make this leap from full-time job to self-employed business owner. And what I really wanted to do is talk about this in the context of this job security, of the so-called job security that we have when we are employed by an employer. Okay, and we have one client, and that client is the person who signs our paycheck. Now, I hope you noticed a subtle shift in my language pattern that I made just there. That was very intentional. I don't know if you've ever thought about this, but a full-time job is nothing more than working for a single client. Now, but you say, well, but they pay me a W-2 and I've got benefits and there's all these differences. Just zoom out for a moment and think with me. If you have a full-time job right now, you have a single client. Now, that single client indeed has made a compelling offer, and they've given you what they call a compensation package that includes salary, certain benefits, and the like. Now, consider this. Again, before we move on, taxes, right? Let's bust this myth real quick, okay? You still have to pay taxes. With a W-2, the employer is helping you by paying taxes ahead of time, so to speak, but they're still being paid. And a lot of times they actually poorly manage this because you end up getting either more money back on your return than you should have. That's not like a windfall of cash, that was like due you that you didn't have before. Like it's money that you could have had all throughout the year and you decided to defer it for some reason until tax refund time. Okay. This is a very, again, a programmatic thing that you've been told that's not exactly right. Okay. And so again, it's just a tax form. We have to pay taxes regardless. Yes, business owners have some other taxes that they have to pay. That's true. But again, you can factor all this into your budgeting. And then let me ask you one more question. If you had enough money via the work that you were doing as a full-time business owner, not to have to worry about the benefits that you get in your compensation package in your full-time job, would those benefits be useful to you? No, the answer is no. The benefits wouldn't matter. So, my friends, what I want to encourage you with here today is that actually you can have more job security in your life if you were to make the conscious decision to decide to work for more than one client at a time. Therefore, by having a business. Because if you're a full-time employee, then you don't actually have any more job security than I do as somebody who works for multiple people. Now, again, you say, well, Um, but if I'm working for myself, I have to do all of my own marketing. Yep. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's certainly true. If you work for another business, that they might do all their own marketing, unless you have a skill in marketing. Which, if you're doing website design in some capacity, then you should have some skills in marketing. And so this idea that the full-time job is going to just sort of rescue you and give you more job security, I think it's just a huge myth. Because there were lots of people during COVID that were not as fortunate as me. I had a great job that wasn't laying people off, but a lot of companies did have to lay people off. So there's that. Now, there's a mistake, though, that people make when they do make this leap. And the mistake is that people end up trading one paycheck to paycheck job for another. They never look to scale their team beyond themselves. And therefore, what ends up happening is they start a business, but the business is really just another job. Okay. And so that's a mistake as well. And when you are distinctly trading time for dollars, in other words, you've maintained a correlation between an amount of hours that you're going to work and the money that comes in, you can only scale in that model by hiring on more employees, and then your overhead just becomes insane. And I'm not saying that scaling is a bad thing. I just said scaling was a good thing, okay? But during hard times, frankly, during any time, there's really only a few business models that can reliably sustain you. And this is why I'm so passionate about recurring revenue and about what I call the subscription web design model. If you're not using this sort of model yet in your business, maybe you're a new listener, maybe you've just stumbled upon, my work and my content, and you don't know anything about the subscription model, then I want to kind of bring you back to those roots and encourage you in this. You can sell websites as a subscription. In fact, I would say this another way. You should sell websites as a subscription service because there's a mental reframe that will benefit you in the long run. And that mental reframe is that websites are not a product, they are a service. Okay? Websites are not a product that people buy from you, they are a service that you perform for other people. Now, today's episode is not about productized services. That's something that we can talk about in the future. Productized services are, in my opinion, the holy grail. Okay, if you figure out productized services, then you've sort of, elevated to the next level of this thing. As long as you're still charging a subscription revenue or a subscription model for them. Okay, but at the very least, you need to treat what you're doing as a service and not a product. Now, I like product businesses. Product businesses are great. I'm just saying that web design is not one of them because of the time it takes to fulfill on the actual work. And so what you can do, rather than charging one large upfront fee for a build, or even doing an upfront fee and then a milestone fee and then a fee at the end of the project, what I'm suggesting is that you can charge recurring subscription revenue for the website project, and you could charge it forever into the future. Not only is this a good thing to do for you to build recurring revenue, it's a great thing to do for your client because you're always going to be there for your client. And one of the big issues that I see is this idea of ghosting. I see web designers ghost their clients all the time. Now, please, in one sense, I want to say keep doing that because then I'll keep getting your clients. But your clients deserve better than that. And I think one of the reasons that web designers ghost their clients often is because they didn't charge them appropriately to begin with, and they were using the wrong kind of model. When you charge for web design the way that I suggest that you do in the subscription model, you transcend just the transactional value in a buyer to service provider sort of relationship and transaction. And you move from the transactional to the relational. Okay. You build a long-term relationship with your clients to where, honestly, if you ever do have to part ways for the natural reasons that sometimes service providers and clients have to part ways in business, it's sad. It's a sad thing because you're not going to get to work together anymore. So rather than what most web designers do, which is to charge one time for the project and then attempt to sell maintenance, which is basically like trying to sell insurance, which is kind of difficult, I suggest that you charge a subscription model from the beginning. And now, look, I've got lots of other episodes on like how the details of that shake out. You can go back to the very beginning of the podcast and download some of those episodes where we walk through the very basics of how to do this. But I just wanted to encourage you to look into this today and to bring it all back around. The reason why is because when you have only one client, which is your employer, you have less job security. But if you have a subscription web design business, you create that stability and you actually have many income sources. Now, do clients leave? Yes. Does this erase the need for marketing? No. Still got to do marketing. In fact, I've talked about it here on this podcast before, but I've made this mistake where I got complacent with it. And I'm telling you, don't make the same mistake. Keep your marketing up. Keep working on your marketing. Keep trying to develop your client pipeline. But remember, if you lose one client, then you have, a few $100s worth of subscription revenue to make up, but that's all. Okay. And that income renews every single month. And frankly, if it wasn't for a subscription web design business, at various points throughout my career, my business would have been dead. But it's because of subscription web design that I've been able to pay my bills, sustain, have a great life, have tons of time freedom, have tons of money freedom, and be flexible. And I want the same for you, and I know the same is possible for you if you'll just take this step to reformat your business into a service model, a subscription revenue model, rather than a product model where you're just charging for the project itself. Okay? So commit to making this mental shift. And as always, if you need help, go check out webdesignmba.substack.com, where I'm telling you all the nitty-gritty details around how to get this done in your business. God bless you guys. Take care, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Web Design MBA podcast.